Warning, some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? William White, yes, part of the North American Dogman Project science team. It is always great to nerd out with scientific minds, because guess what? Science is facts. Yet before we head out, please, I need to feed. Much better. That was absolutely delicious. I do need to make sure that I am completely revamped, recharged, and ready to hunt the Dogman. Without further ado, it is time for William and myself to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. We again have a member of our science team, yes, and a bi-weekly host popping in. William White has allotted some more time to hang out in the Fox Den and nerd out with myself and everybody else and blow our minds. How are you doing tonight, William?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
So it's good to link up with you and good that you're doing well. I'm good myself, been pretty busy just plugging away on some things, but you know how it is. No rest for the wicked. So tonight I thought it would be pretty interesting potentially to hammer off a couple encounters in the New York area and get your feedback on them. And also recently, I always had a hypothesis just from some of the reports that raccoons were playing some sort of intricate involvement in this, meaning people saying that it had raccoon looking hands, feet, ears. And I just became intrigued by it because I have a little local raccoon that hangs around here. I don't know if it's he or she. I toss them out food sometimes, super cool, but I've seen them be insane before, hence trash pandas when people open their little dumpsters that they're trying to rummage through. So they can be absolute savages. And I happened to be introduced to one that was almost the size of a Volkswagen. Okay. And I am not really sure the exact time. Supposedly it went extinct because when I was looking at the lineage, they did branch off from the whole canine and bear right around a certain time that all those broke up, and they're related to foxes kind of, and it's really interesting. But they did have an ancestor at a point in time that was the size of a car almost.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to imagine. A raccoon, they're cute and cuddly sometimes, but sometimes I've seen them get in fights with dogs and stuff, and they're pretty vicious. I can't imagine one that's bigger than a modern raccoon. That would be terrifying.
Wouldn't it, my friend? And correct me if I'm wrong, they drown dogs and other beings that they're trying to consume or having fights with sometimes. I've seen some of the videos of that. I mean, of course, the articulated hands. I mean, a dog's got snapping jaws, but a raccoon's just pinning your face down.
They're very smart.
Yes, they are super smart. And I've also heard of encounters where dogmen have come up behind and drowned something. Actually, Colleen, who's the member of our science team, was explaining about that. And I can't remember the exact how long it is. I don't even want to throw out a number, but I know there's a point in time where raccoons' minds reset, but you can teach them to open doors and do all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But then just one day, for some reason, it resets and you can teach them again. But like you said, yes, they're extremely smart.
It's like they've got a little flash drive or something, and it fills up, and then it's got to delete everything and start all over again. Yeah, but they are very intelligent animals. There's no doubt, and they're very tough too. Like they can absorb a lot of damage, which they kind of goes along with what people say about the Dogman being able to absorb a lot of damage. So who knows?
Exactly. And you must have heard about this. I was recently, just because I'm a nerd and I like to learn, watching stuff about hyenas, and hyenas have survived out in the wild some of the most grotesque wounds that no other animals had. They would succumb to this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But yet people have watched them and documented them healing and coming back from it, and it's still not really necessarily getting as much help from the pride because some were males, and in
Mm-hmm.
the hyena hierarchy, males are the bums. They're the ones that usually have the worn down teeth from just getting like the crappy bones and everything left over. So imagine now something like the dog man being able to heal itself like that or survive something that's pretty devastating. And I mean, all predators are remotely tough, but meaning leopards. I've seen a leopard take a beating, but it didn't really seem like it was too much of a beating, but it ended up being fatal to it.
Sure.
But then that hyena where it's literally intestines were like almost hanging out and it's still functioning. So it is obviously different animals can take different beatings, but I was baffled to find out the average wolf 4 to 6 years in the wild. Average
That makes
coyote
sense.
6 to 8. Right? Okay.
Life's
Average
tough in the wild for sure.
right, but average mountain lion 5 to 7. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Average orca around 90 years, but that's aquatic. We're talking about life on land here. The average hyena in the wild, man, 35 to 40 years. Let's go.
Really, I did
Yeah.
not know that. Yeah, they must have something going on that makes them a little tougher than normal.
I mean, they're immune to anthrax and rabies because of the acidic level in their stomach.
They're
That's what
not
I'm just
exactly living in like the most hospitable environment either. I mean, Africa, man, like there's a lot of big dangerous stuff out there. That's and diseases too. That's really impressive. I didn't know that fact.
Yes, and I mean when you look at lions are like 15 or so, which is still pretty solid. But I mean a hyena's got that by another 15 years, man.
That's cool. Very cool.
Super cool. And here's another one for you. The squirrel outside can live up to 15 years, inside up to 25.
Wow. I did not imagine that.
Yeah, isn't it so crazy? But then the chipmunk, 3 to 4
Mm.
outside, 5 to 6 inside. So it's just really interesting to watch. Yeah, like I was saying, the different hardiness of animals or the
Hmm.
capability of their survival. And then grizzly bears, 15 to 20, and that's a pretty hardy life. So it's really
Sure.
interesting why the wolf only makes it 4 to 6, but the dang grizzly bear is out there for 15 to 20. It's like
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, that is interesting. Maybe it's because the wolves are hunting, elk and moose and animals that, in the process of hunting them, you got to worry about getting kicked in the head by something that maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, a domestic dog, depending on the breed, obviously, but a lot of them you can expect them to live 12, 14 years. You know, pretty standard. So yeah, why is the wolf like less than half that? It's
That's what
interesting.
I'm saying. Yeah, so mind-boggling. And again, house cats, right? House cats can be around for like 18 years sometimes I've seen
20
before.
sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then when you look at the life expectancy of wild cats for the most part, it's really nothing that impressive. I mean,
Hmm.
even with like tigers and things. So it is interesting. Why does the grizzly bear and polar bear and why do them kick around so much longer? But then yeah, like foxes. Foxes are so smart. The average red fox lives for 3 to 4 years. Wait, what?
Whoa, that's nothing.
That's
That's
that
like
is
that's like a
nothing.
mouse.
That's what I'm saying. How does a red fox only live for 3 to 4 years on average? That's insane.
That's wild. Yeah, and as far as toughness goes, I can't speak for lions or tigers, but I know guys who hunt mountain lions, puma, cougar, whatever you want to call them, out west, and they don't use big guns usually. They use 22 Magnum, which most of us are familiar with the 22. It's not very impressive. 22 Magnums, marginally more powerful, and it does the job. You hit the cougar in the right place, and boom. So yeah, sometimes the animals we think are so resilient and tough, maybe they're more of a glass cannon. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was you just said, because that's why also they're super selective on how they, are hunting. So yeah, glass cannon is super amount of offense, but they can't really take any sort of beating. Where I've watched a hyena get its neck wrung by a male lion,
Yeah.
and then have her or his backup come in, free that one, then he's back up in the fight. But then, like I said, I watch a baboon get kind of attacked by the leopard, take a stick, beat him. The leopard jumps down. The rest of the baboons take their sticks, beat him up. Yeah, it looked like it didn't feel too good, but then yeah, the leopard ends up being deceased from that. You're like, wait a second, you're a leopard. Like what?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. That's that jives a little better with the Dogman hypothesis. The relationship to hyenas, perhaps, or maybe what we're kind of hinting at today, some sort of a connection to the raccoon, or what's the kind of official Latin family, some sort of cyanid. But anyway,
Yes.
that whole family of animals, the raccoon bear family that diverged like 6 million years ago or whatever it was.
Exactly. And aquatic life, again, with this reference, is a little bit different than land life. So, I mean, great white sharks, like deep blue, is believed to be like 30 years old. Pretty dang impressive, too.
That's
And then,
especially in that environment, yeah.
yes, exactly, like you said. And then when you look at like, okay, obviously reptiles I understand because the cold blood and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but still,
And they
crocodiles,
get bigger. A crocodile never stops growing, right? You've got that Gustav in the Nile that's eaten like 300 people, and he just looks like a freaking dinosaur.
120 years old with their teeth still, man. Like 120 years old. Like, how is that possible? I mean, you're consuming things, like you said, you're battling things that are fighting back. I mean, you're
Mm-hmm.
battling hippos, you're battling other crocodiles that rip your arm off, and you're 120 years old. How is that logical?
That's wild. It is.
And then you get like the mammals on land that just, unfortunately, it's they just don't seem to have the longest life expectancies.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's something to ponder. And then you got humans, we can easily live to 90, 100 years old if we're lucky,
Mm-hmm.
What makes us different than all the other mammals? We're pretty long lived compared to
Yes.
probably any other mammalian species. Maybe whales beat us. I don't know. The big
Um,
whales. I don't know.
I think they said orcas were the longest living
Oh,
that they
really?
know of,
Okay.
90 years. Yeah, I mean that's still dang good, but I mean
Yeah.
sure there might be one maybe older out there we don't know of, sure, but like you said, yeah, I mean I believe I saw a gentleman that didn't even have access to any sort of modern medicine that was 100 plus in the Amazon out, and it's like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Well, that's the crazy thing about us. It's not like it's modern medicine that lets us live that long. People were living past 100 in the Renaissance, in the Middle Ages, in the
Right?
Bronze Age. It was rare, but it happened for sure. So yeah, that is. I'm thinking about humans a little bit. My grandpa just turned 90 over the weekend. Pretty cool. He's still around and kicking.
Yes,
So
90. My grandfather just turned 94. That's what I'm saying. How does that? I mean, I hope I'm kicking around for that long, but like you said, that's super impressive. And I mean, obviously now we put ourselves in environments where obviously we're able to, in theory, protect our young and elderly. Whereas
hmm
if we were in the medieval times or something, well, I don't know if people would be making it to 90 or something, but
yeah, not
maybe.
not regularly, but I'm sure it happened. So I'm sure they wouldn't have been looked at as necessarily like a freak of nature. They would have just been, wow, that's the old guy in the village. Whoa. Yeah.
Right? I know it's so funny, but all right. So this encounter right here, my friend, is something I've wanted to cover for quite a while, but I don't really enjoy just sitting here reading stuff off. I enjoy definitely, if my hosts haven't heard of it, great. But if they have, also just discussing stuff with them instead of sitting here and listening to myself. So I saved this because, yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on this. And we're going to go up to the Northeast. I'm in Maine, but this is in New York, okay?
All right.
Occurred February 2nd, 2018 in Kingston. You have local resident, 30-year-old Brandon Close, who was about to finish up at work for the night and head back to his remote 192-acre farmstead when his phone begins ringing. Seeing that it's his wife, Of course, he gets a tad worried since she is all alone with their newborn, and if something did happen, their closest neighbor is 25 minutes away. Quickly answering the phone, his wife begins to tell Brandon that all their cows are acting really strange and have grouped themselves up in the 20 by 20 fenced in pasture. His wife continues to say that their pet dog, Maya, also refuses to go outside in the dark to use the bathroom and that she had to drag her outside. Telling his wife he is on his way home and that he will try to hurry up, Brandon hops into his truck and begins speeding home. As he arrives, the light of day now is almost completely faded, but there still is enough visibility for him to head down and check the cows without a flashlight. Coming up to the pasture, he sees all 12 of his cows jumping up on each other and trying to escape. They had been pressing on the electric fence for so long that the breaker had short circuited. Thinking, right?
I'm just
Thinking of
imagining being the cow that's up against the fence, just getting shocked until it.
right. Some steak later there.
Yeah.
Thinking it must be a large pack of coyotes that has spooked his cows, Brandon calls his neighbor Gene to see if he will come over and scare off these coyotes so that the cows don't escape. Agreeing to help out, Gene said he'll be over as soon as he can. No sooner had Brandon hung up the phone and started walking towards his house to check in on his wife, he hears a loud, human like scream mixed in with a sound of strange canine howling. Now, feeling a little uneasy, he runs back to his house. As soon as he gets inside, his wife informs him that some sort of strange canine like creature has been howling and screaming all day and into the evening around their property. Also, the creature was tapping and clawing at the window before seemingly sounding as if it was dragging its clawed hand repeatedly around the house. Baffled and now feeling even more uneasy, Brandon grabs his gun and steps outside with the keys to the Trailmaster 4x4. As his wife slowly steps out behind him, Brandon loads up his shotgun. To his horror, they both see deep 5-digit claw marks all around the outside of their home where his wife had claimed she had heard the sound. Now the pair is feeling extremely uneasy, and they begin to hear once again the same howls Brandon had just heard and the ones his wife that said that she had been hearing all day. Brandon immediately tells her to go inside and lock the doors as he sees Jean pulling up. Once Gene gets out of his truck, Brandon fills his friend in on what has been happening, and the pair proceed to head down a small trail at the edge of the property on the 4x4 and into the darkness of the night. The trail is surrounded by dense forest that is only pushed back by 4 or 5 feet from the trail. As the two men are driving about 2 miles deep into the trail, they see numerous groups of deer dashing towards them so close they could reach out and touch them in the opposite direction. Looking at one another, they are baffled because they have never seen anything like this before. Looking back at Gene, Brandon says, there must be something extremely large out here that's stirring up the cows and the wildlife. Nodding back, the men continue. As they drive faster down the trail, they both begin to hear something large crashing through the trees beside them. Slowing down the buggy, the sounds of the crashing brush have all of a sudden begun to stop. It was silent out, minus the sound of the 4x4 in neutral as it came to a stop. Suddenly, the pair began to hear the canine sounds just out of sight of the illumination of the headlights. Turning off the buggy and turning on all the lights, Gene grabs his Remington 875 pump shotgun and begins loading his high brass shells. And Brandon picks up his million candle spotlight and shines it in the direction of the loud breathing that they think this is. To the men's horror and disbelief, they see an enormous canine like creature squatted down and peeking out from behind a tree with amber yellow eyes. Suddenly, they hear two loud popping sounds. as this creature pushes itself up onto its hind legs and begins walking towards them in a hunched over fashion.
I just got to interject here because I've heard, many stories over the years that always describe that popping sound when it goes vertical. And I mean, that's just the wildest concept, right? That is like to me. So I went to medical school for 2 years and then dropped out. And I got to take gross anatomy and lower limb anatomy, and I got to dissect cadavers. And in order for that to work in my head, the creature would have to have, like, your hip bone, it goes into a socket, obviously. The head of your femur goes into a socket in your hip and rotates and moves there nicely. So what I'm imagining when I hear them describe this popping is there's like a second socket on each side of the hip, and somehow it's dislocating and then relocating the head of its femur into this second socket, which is, there's no earthly creature on the planet that does that. That's insane.
It's like a double joint. Yeah, I've heard some people say that they have like an extra set of joints potentially, and as you just stated, that makes sense in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, go on. I wanted to point that out because we try to like find these creatures in history that maybe have a connection to it. But stuff like that makes me go, it's like Alien or something.
Exactly. That part, I'm with you 100% because, as stated, I believe what we talk about all the time. People are misidentifying things. People are hoaxing. People are crazy. People are seeing bears, wolves. They are seeing, some ancient species that are still around. But then you get cases like this that it's definitely not any of those,
Right. That's wild.
And it gets worse. Brandon said the creature was easily 8 feet tall, dark black, and had enormous human-like arms that were dragging below its knees and almost on the ground. Its hands were attached with large black nails, which, remember the picture that Jody got? Yes. Enormous pectoral muscles, muscular canine-like legs, and honestly, to both men, looked like a werewolf from the movie Van Helsing. Gene begins to yell out, "Oh my effing God, that's a gosh darn werewolf." Unable to answer out of sheer trauma, Brandon just stands there. Then all of a sudden he hears 3 shots fire off, and he looks over at Gene. One of the shots directly hitting the animal in the chest, tearing a piece of the muscle clear off and spewing blood everywhere. Quickly leaping to avoid the incoming lead, the creature screams out in pain and stumbles around before regaining its composure and raging out while jumping 20 feet up an enormous tree and then leaping another 30 feet in the opposite direction, crashing off into the darkness and raging out as it is extremely ticked off that Gene just blew off a piece of his chest. Starting up the 4x4 buggy, Brandon begins speeding at the max speed of this thing, 45 miles per hour in the direction of his property. Gene starts yelling out, "The damn gun is jammed. It's effing jammed. It's goddamn jammed, man." Suddenly, in the illumination of the headlights, the men see the creature inches away from the driver's side of the door, peering in at Brandon, grinning as if to say, "Now it's my turn to F you up." The animal was running beside them on 2 legs, hunched over, almost looking like it was going to hit the ground as it was streaming by them, before throwing its entire body weight into the driver's side of the buggy over and over again, beginning to almost tip the vehicle over. The 4x4, you could hear the engine whining as it was losing traction because this beast was trying to literally hold its hand as it was ramming it off to push it into the forest. Finally getting his shotgun unjammed, Gene stands up and says, "Watch out." Boom! Shoots right at the creature again. The creature, they were unable to know if it was hit, but it retreated off into the darkness. Could this once again be the end of their encounter with this? Of course not, because once again, the animal loops around and begins pursuing them. As Brandon and Gene were about to burst out of the trail and onto the farm, the creature tries to flank them and leaps in the air, missing the 4x4 by inches as it bombs off and rolls into the forest. Gene fired a few more shots towards the animal before it decides to give up its pursuit, letting out numerous rage-filled howls.
Yeah, yeah. I remember hearing this story, back around that time frame when it was fairly fresh, and it is just one of the most intense stories that's out there, I think, regarding the Dogman. Um, so, as I've alluded to in the past on your show, I'm somewhat of a gun guy. I enjoy firearms and shooting and
Thank you, because I
hunting.
don't know anything about those.
And so there's a cool Alaska YouTube channel that I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll throw it out there. Give them some
Of
free
course.
press. It's Chook's Outdoors Adventures, and Chook is this guy from Alaska, and he talks a lot about hunting up there, bear and caribou, and also all the cool stuff up there, and gun calibers, and a lot of his stuff is actually self defense related regarding the wildlife up there. Interestingly enough, he does a lot of episodes about Bigfoot. He's a Bigfoot believer, so he likes to do Bigfoot research up there as well. But just this past week, he had a short video about a recent event where a large Kodiak, and Kodiak are the big version of grizzlies, right? They live on Kodiak Island. They're fed by salmon. They get to be much bigger than the average grizzly. Anyway, this Kodiak bear breaks into a guy's house. The guy shoots it with, I think, a 40 caliber handgun, which is pretty common among like law enforcement and civilians. Um, and he wounds it. It's like a 900-pound animal. You'd have to hit it in just right
Yeah,
spot
you
with a
just
gun like
pissed it
that.
off. Yeah.
Right. So, well, the bear was pissed, but it was scared too. It was hurt.
Of course. Yeah.
And so it goes to basically the back porch. They call it like the Arctic room in Alaska. It's a place where you take off all your winter gear before you go into the house. And this guy's neighbor hears the commotion, and the neighbor he's a fairly well trained guy, sound like maybe a former law enforcement, and he grabs a shotgun loaded with high brass slugs. I think the slugs are actually copper, which for those who don't know, copper is harder than lead, lighter weight but harder, so it's not going to deform as much. It'll just penetrate, which is what you want on a big animal like that. And he ends up bear with one or two shots from his shotgun, and these slugs. He had the right placement, but the whole point of that was this 900-pound bear goes down from a couple slugs in its essentially its lungs and heart, the ideal sort of shot right through the side, and so I'm imagining this Dogman's probably somewhere between 400 and 700 pounds, my guess. 8 foot tall, muscular creature, and he gets hit in the chest by a slug. They can see the visible damage, meat's hanging off, there's blood everywhere, the animal's pissed, but it doesn't seem to slow it down. So we're talking about something that's maybe a little more tougher than a grizzly bear, which is pretty terrifying. Just wanted to throw that out there and add that in there. So.
Well, it's back to like you were saying with, sometimes people can drop them like that, but then like the hyena thing, like we were saying, right? How they can survive and take a little bit more. And also, I mean, just think of adrenaline too, right? So who knows if that thing maybe did succumb to that wound later on or was suffering like, kind of.
Yeah, you never know.
Some major side effects, etc. But
or maybe it's got like Wolverine level healing, and it just needs to take a nap, and it's right as rain. I don't know.
Well, that was like the orangutan video. I don't know if I sent you, where it knew which bark and which leaves to chew up and put on its face, and then it rests, and it cleared up a huge gouge that was on its face. So yeah, exactly. But with adrenaline, I've seen numerous things, unfortunately, where people get lit up, but they're so on adrenaline, they end up sort of coming to the gunshot wounds after. But you're like, dude, what the heck, man? This dude just took like 5, 6, 7 rounds to the chest, and he's still firing off, running, but then obviously, night. So
no, that's very much a real thing. Yeah, guys will. It's not like Hollywood a lot of the times. Even with rifle is a whole different realm than handguns. Much more power. It surprises people in combat sometimes how long someone might go with a chest wound from a powerful rifle, and they don't even know they're hit until everything calms down, and then the blood pressure drops, and hopefully a medic's nearby, but that's how it is.
And I've heard so many cases, whether it's Siberian tigers or grizzly bears, that have been, shot up and end up trying to circle back around, and then they're found deceased from where they bled out. But they were waiting to ambush whatever the heck did it to them, meaning they had so much adrenaline at that point in time that they turned back around and were ready to fight. But then they ended up bleeding out. So it is definitely really interesting. And I got one more here for you before we let you go. And this is, again, in New York. And October 21st, Buffalo. A woman is letting her dog outside before bed. As they were returning back inside, she sees an enormous, dark, smoky gray, werewolf like creature with an enormous mane, pointed ears, and glowing eyes, angrily snarling at her from only 20 or so feet away, quickly slamming the door. As she looked around and noticed her dog was already inside, the woman called the police, who were unable to successfully locate the mysterious animal.
Interesting. That's one of those ones where it's like, well, was that more of a spiritual manifestation of something or a physical one? It's like it's there, and then it disappears without a trace or something. That's and she described it as kind of smoky. That's interesting.
Very interesting, and it is so mind-boggling because you know how we like break it down into like different sectors, and that's what some people that they just can't seem to really grasp their mind around the aspects of it could be physical, but then also it could, like the spectral case with Linda Godfrey. I was trying to explain that to somebody one time, and they were like, well, no, it can't be like that. It can't be physical too. And it's just like, well,
it can be. Why can't it be both or 10 different things? That's kind of how I look at it myself. But
right. And I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, something is occurring. Okay. Meaning people are missing, meaning people have been seeing strange things. And I don't know if I did get a chance to send you those images, but I will. I actually hand drew some images and had Ryan Tremblay, the Wendigo guy, help write some analogies about the differences between werewolves, skinwalkers, and dogmen. And because there's a big difference. And honestly, like I've spoken about it before, and I've used what you said numerous times about not being able to survive the transformation. That was actually recently Brian Barber from Bigfoot's Barbershop wanted to ask me about that. And I've almost come to the conclusion of I don't believe in werewolves, okay? And if someone wants to be like, hey, well, how do you believe in a dog man? And I will explain that, well, okay, the Rougarou and the history of that, yes, okay. Well, what if it's always seen at night, right? What if they're just seeing dogmen? Dogmen have been spotted in the United States since 1887, okay? I mean, honestly, how many indigenous cultures have werewolf lore? As far as I know, none. But how many have skinwalker and dogman lore? All of them, okay? Right. And how much evidence do we even have at the North American Dogman Project for quote unquote lycanthropy and shape shifting and changing on the full moon? I've never documented any of that. I have no proof or no photos of any of that. So when it comes to werewolves, that just doesn't make sense to me how something can be so easily disposed of by a silver knife here. I can just stab you and you're done. But then you go through this huge transformation where all your bones are breaking internally, your brain's shifting all around. But then, wait a second, you're disposed of by just a piece of silver. I can understand the skinwalker magic aspect because, as far as I know, skinwalkers I've never documented being disposed of by modern day weapons or anyone actually successfully disposing of a skinwalker. Okay. But again, how can a werewolf be a legit thing?
Yeah. Kenny, what was the date for that first story?
Oh shoot. I just closed down my book, but
oh, bummer.
Why? What's up?
Oh, I just wanted to see if it correlated with. I mean, I don't think it was a werewolf myself. I'm not a huge werewolf, fan or believer, but I did want to see if it correlated with a full moon.
Yeah, I can pop this open real quick before we let it go. I think it was 2018, to be quite honest with you.
But yeah, it was like January or February.
So yeah, I'll try to pop this out, but yeah, I'll let you know when it loads up here. I don't know. How do you feel about that before we let you go? While I get
so yeah, I mean, I tend to view it as more of a creature that is what it is the whole time. At the same time, there's a lot of weird stuff in this reality that I don't think we have any handle on. And while none of the science I know could explain some sort of a transformation into, going from, say, the average weight of a man, maybe 175 pounds, to like a 400-pound werewolf or 500-pound werewolf, and all this
muscle go afterwards.
Right?
Where's it all go?
There, I don't know how that could work. At the same time, let's hypothesize and say, maybe for lack of a better word, magic does exist. Maybe there is some way to draw from the energy of the earth or the moon or whatever.
Yes, yep.
And maybe these ancient people or these, practitioners understand how to utilize that, some sort of tradition passed down, that the rest of us don't know. I'm not going to discount it 100%, but I do think it's more likely that it is in general, what people are saying is something that is always in that form. Unless it's, maybe spiritual, and then it can take whatever form it wants. But, when you're talking about something that gets its pectoral muscle shot off, it's hanging there, it's bleeding, it's in pain, that sounds physical to me. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying too, right? That wasn't a silver bullet, man. I mean, again,
no, this was a shotgun slug. The New York, upstate New York tip. Basically anti-deer round.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So again, like if that's able to do that, and just how does a piece of silver and where does that come from? Again,
getting into like the kind of the magical beliefs of it all is that the people a long time ago viewed things like lycanthropy as some sort of demonic or evil associated thing, and silver and salt have always been viewed as like these pure elements. And so the silver would essentially exercise whatever demonic influence there was over the flesh of the individual who was the werewolf. And it's also why vampires don't see their own reflection, because in the old days, mirrors were made of silver. The backing of them was silver plate. So
okay. So
that's where that comes from. Yeah.
Because I was wondering about that, because I mean, vampires' weakness to silver too. So I'm just kind of like, yo, where did this all come from? I mean, how all of a sudden is the werewolf or the Dogman or the Rugru, it has to be silver? Well, as far as I know, man, people are sitting there blasting up Dogman without silver, and it's causing enough damage.
There was one lady from Northern Africa. I heard her get interviewed about the topic 12 or 13 years ago. And because they have some sort of a wolf man, dog man, and hyena man, don't know, jackal sort of thing in Libya and Tunisia and those countries in northern Africa. And she was saying that according to their lore, they could only be slain by, I think it was a bronze or it might have been a brass spear.
Which would again be something natural, right, or purish, supposedly.
Yeah, special anyway. But that lore must have dated back to the Bronze Age, when people were using that as a material to make weapons out of. Because once everyone figured out how to make things out of iron, no one was doing bronze or brass or copper, anything. It's just so much
Makes
softer.
Sense. Yeah. Well, I got the date here, so before.
All right, let's check it out.
February 2nd, 2018.
All right, so we can safely confirm that it did not happen on a full moon, because there was a full moon on January 31st, 2018, and then the next one was March 1st. So February that year did not have any full moons.
Awesome. All right. Well, final note I would like to ask you, since you know about guns and ammo. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Okay, so we bring in, say, some decked out military people, special ops, whatever, full-fledged body armor, dope night vision, all this stuff, right? So these dudes that just hit that thing with a shotgun, okay? So tell me right now, if I got a Navy SEAL decked all out, right, man, and he lights that thing up, dude, with an automatic weapon, that's going to be causing way more damage than that crappy shotgun to the chest, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, let's say he was using a 5.56, which up until very recently, it's been the standard caliber for most soldiers in the U.S. military since the 1960s.
Body armor, right?
That would easily pierce, most forms of body armor, and I would imagine whatever the Dogman's got going on. And it's super high velocity, so when it hits flesh, it creates these hydrostatic. Imagine you toss a stone at a pond, right? Mm-hmm. And then the stone hits the water, and you see that water kind of plop up,
Yep.
And so that happens to flesh when it gets hit by a bullet, just at very high speed, really quickly. So it'll create these cavities much bigger than the bullet for a short period of time as the bullet hits it and kind of dumps that energy into the area. So yeah, the 5.56, it's so fast, it does that really well. So yeah, let's suppose, he's able to unload a magazine and hit it with, I don't know, 20 out of 30 rounds in a standard magazine from an M16, M4, AR-15 full auto, whatever. I would, in my head, figure the Dogman's toast. almost anything's toast. I mean, guys in Africa have been poaching elephants with AK-47s for years. An AK-47 is a different caliber, but it's a relatively lightweight, relatively small rifle caliber. So yeah, I would imagine that unless it's got something supernatural or alien going on, yeah, it's like that story said, it can bleed. You can tear chunks off of it. You hit it with enough things, you're going to tear enough chunks off it. It won't function,
And that's why I just asked you that, because honestly, I mean, realistically, that would make a lot of sense for some of the people seeing the decked out military people, right? The military specs, because let's be real, dude, if you had a squad of 10, 15 people, I think you and I, if we had
if you had a platoon, I don't think it would survive. So.
No, dude. And I mean, we have that World War II story where they were back in World War II and they smoked them up. So, yeah, no, it just seems to be same thing with the grizzly bear, man. I mean, what, 2 people with decked out military gear would smoke a grizzly bear?
Oh, yeah. I mean, shoot, sometimes just, a single dude with a 9mm handgun can take down a grizzly in the right circumstances. It's happened many times. It's not ideal. It's not what you want if you're going to be in that situation. But, it's happened plenty of times. In fact, I don't know if it's still the current world record, but for the longest time, the largest bear taken, and then registered, recorded by a human was taken by a little, and I say little because apparently she was like less than 5 feet tall, indigenous woman up in Africa or maybe northern Canada, and she killed this giant grizzly bear with a .22 caliber rifle, which, like I mentioned earlier, not that impressive. Fun to shoot. Most of us who've shot, we learned how to shoot on .22s. They're not that powerful. And but it wasn't self-defense. The bear didn't know she was there. She kind of ambushed it and shot it right behind the ear with the 22. Yep. Goes right in the brain bucket. It's dead.
Boom. That makes sense. Well, thanks again for stopping in tonight, man, and allotting some of your time and your brain to everyone so that we can learn and keep on trying to figure out what's going on, because you've taught me a lot, man, and it's definitely always great to link up, bro.
Yeah, it's always fun. Love it.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. And I will see you very soon.